So, what do we do when our boss becomes the bully? And how can women in the workplace, in the workforce, handle bullying, especially if you're a woman over 40, a woman of color, or a woman of the LGBTQ plus community? Has there ever been a time in your life where you had a job and on your way to that job, as you're driving into work, your stomach just turns? You may get a headache, you feel physically ill. Not, you feel like that dread, right? That overcomes you. And it's not necessarily because of the demands placed upon you for the work that you're called to do, like whatever your duties are in the position, but more so because of the person you report to. Have you ever felt like that? Well, today in my episode of my Corporate Chronicles, I'm going to be actually taking you back to 2001. Okay, 2001 were my days as a RADONC nurse. RADONC meaning it's short for what we call radiation oncology nurse, where my passion for working with cancer patients was overshadowed by, let's just call it an unexpected experience where my boss becomes my workplace bully. And I want to get into that, okay? What happens in those instances and what you might be experiencing yourself at this time, perhaps you have in the past, or maybe in the future it might be something you're up against and you may want to know how to deal with it. So, we're going to be talking about that today, but before we get all into it, and in case we haven't met yet, hey there, Queen. Thanks so much for stopping by and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you're new to me, okay? Or if you have been rocking with me for a while, I appreciate you being here. I'm your new favorite coach and your biz bestie. My name is Katrina Marie, also known as the Boss Chick Biz Coach and your fearless leader. I am a holistic business coach and an RN health and wellness educator, and I help women just like you who are corporate career professionals successful in establishing your careers. I help high achieving women entrepreneurs over 40, women of color, and again, women of the LGBTQ plus community. I help you to heal internally so that you can expedite your external success. I help you to exit a corporate career that no longer serves you, and I teach you how to build an aligned and profitable online brand and business without sacrificing your soul and sanity or compromising your health and happiness. So if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do. I would appreciate it. And make sure you hit the notification bell. That notification bell is going to let you know whenever I go live and or drop a new episode. This is just the early stages of my Corporate Chronicles. I just wanted to have a kickback kind of casual conversation with you to kind of talk about a lot of the issues that we deal with in corporate America. All right. This series is really about like what really goes on behind the glass ceilings in these high-rise buildings, right? It's not all what it cracks out to be or what the hype is all about, right? So I want to talk to you about the various kinds of challenges that I have experienced in my 30 plus year in corporate America when I was in the workforce, because I know that a lot of women come to me with so many different questions, and workplace bullying, toxic work environments, toxic jobs, hostile work environments, all of those kinds of things do come up quite a bit. So let's get to the story. Okay, I'm not going to hold you up, but let's go ahead and talk about, let me just kind of set the scene for you really quickly. So imagine back in 2001, I was actually at the time living in, where was I living? I was living down south. Okay, so I've hopped around. I oftentimes have split my time over the years on the East Coast and the West Coast. I got East Coast family, West Coast family. But I have lived a span of time down south. Um, and so at this particular time, I was living down south. Me and the love of my life were there together, and we were planning a trip back to California to build our new lives together on the West Coast. And so at that time, of course, when you're planning a trip, you want to make sure you got all your ducks in a row, right? You want to make sure you got everything in order and that you're planning everything accordingly. So, of course, one of the things, a part of our plan was to make sure we had jobs before we got there, because the last thing you want to do is get out to, any state, especially when you're relocating and trying to get your lives together. The last thing you want to do is wait until you get there before you start looking for work. So we started this process ahead of time, which was obviously a smart thing to do. So in my job search, which back then, by the way, let me just say, it was so much easier So much easier back then to find work, so much easier than it is today, actually, to find work that was um, satisfying, right? That was fulfilling. At least that was my experience, and I never had an issue at all. I could get a job like that, like that, like that. So it didn't take me long. I looked for a little while, and I'm one of those kind of people that I can see what the qualifications are for the job. And, I'll go through and kind of check off, okay, I've got this, they're looking for that. I'm kind of okay in this area. I don't really have this experience, but I can learn it. I can learn this skill. So I'm never one to, feel like when I look at a job description, I never look at the criteria and say, oh, I don't meet all of the minimal criteria or qualifications that they're looking for. I usually will go through, scan it, or look through very thoroughly and say, well, I don't necessarily have this experience, but I have this experience and I have this experience and I have all of these other attributes, right? So this position, as far as I'm concerned, I'm well qualified for. I'm going to go for it. The worst they can say is no. I'll ask them why. It's not a big deal, right? If it's something, as long as you usually have the personality and, other, um, like other traits that they're looking for that can't necessarily be taught, oftentimes you'll get hired, or at least that was the case back then. And they're willing to bring you on if they have the capacity to train you on a particular skill. So I had some experience, obviously, as a nurse, and I was able to create a very impressive resume, which I've always done. My CVs have always been pretty extensive and impressive. And so I sent this on to this particular company in California and got a call right away. And so I was really excited about it because I got a call. She did an interview. The hiring manager did an interview, passed my information on to the department, like, upper management, her boss. And then they set up I think we did, like, I want to say I did a call with her, and then I did a second call with the three of them. And then we set up some time for when I came out to California, when we got there and got settled, that I would actually come in for an in-person interview. But the preliminary work we had done, the interviews we had already done, was good to go. Like, I nailed it. I was able to get the position. But of course, they got to do their due diligence, make sure they meet me in person. Back then, 2001, they didn't have video conferencing, so we didn't do any Zoom call or anything like that. It was simply a phone call. So they got to know who they're bringing in, right? So I looked good on paper. I did well on the phone interview, and now they just needed to meet me in person. So I was so excited, for everything, for the opportunity, for what I was going to learn. This was a very specialized area. Now it's not so easy to get into a position in nursing that's very specialized, like radiation oncology, without you having the experience. In fact, that's true for any specialty area. Typically, they want you to have, some kind of minimal experience, right? 1 to 2 years at least, and then they can teach you from there how they do things. But back then, companies were more willing to take a chance and say, well, you've got all of this great experience. We love the way you interview. You've got a wonderful personality. You're bubbly, you're fun, you're this, you're that, whatever it is they're looking for. We seem to hit it off really well. So they hired you much, much more easily. And okay, fast forward, I got to California, got all settled into my new place, went out for the interview, met the hiring manager, her boss, the team, and they were like, you're the one. So we moved forward with that, with the hiring process. Okay. They were paying me more than I'd ever made. I mean, it was just so exciting. And here was the great news too for me, is that they had the main office, which was in a downtown location. And that was more of a conducive learning environment, very stimulating, because that's where I was going to get all my learning, and learn the ropes about this specific specialty area. But then after 3 months, which is typically the introductory probationary period, right? I was going to be able to transfer, at least part-time, to a location, a satellite office, which was very close to where I had moved. So that was like a 5 or 10 minute drive compared to, say, a 45 minute to an hour, maybe 45 minute drive with traffic. That was a huge deal. So I was very much looking forward to that. not to mention great benefits. So great pay, great benefits, a very welcoming, warm, challenging position. Like it was just all the way around just great. So I was excited about it, ecstatic, like over the purple moon, so thrilled about it. So then, just to kind of transition and speed up the story, transitioning into some of the challenges I had faced. So first, let's just paint the picture that during this time, I was learning everything I needed to know. I'm a quick study. I was taking copious notes. I'm an inquisitive person. I was asking all the questions. I was hopping in there and volunteering to do everything that I could possibly do. I learned, that's where I really honed my skills for, IV therapy. So I really learned how to, place an IV, became really proficient in that. I got my PICU skills. Like it's so many skills I've gotten from there, the medication, just like the whole gamut of everything that comes with being a radiation oncology nurse. Talking to the patients, establishing a great rapport with the patients. They loved me. They requested me. I was building relationships with the people who worked there, who were my colleagues and my coworkers, from the front desk receptionists and secretaries and admin staff, all the way to, up to the doctors. I had garnered so much respect from these people. And so I started gaining a lot of popularity. I become, really somebody who was well liked, well respected, really appreciated. And that didn't really sit well with this individual who was the supervising nurse. She was the supervising nurse of the RADONC department for the nursing department specifically. She did not run the entire department of the radiation oncology people. Okay, that was a separate staff, but she did run the nursing department, which was a small staff. It was like a few of us in there. And so that didn't sit well with her at all. She was really unhappy about the fact that, she was the one getting all the clout, right? She was the one that people really loved and they were requesting. And this is not to say that they didn't still really appreciate her and respect her and all of that. But the fact that I was now getting the attention, and the attention wasn't turned to her. The fact that I was the one being requested, not her. The fact that people was really feeling me and really liking me a lot. And so that's when the tables turned. And so I noticed that, now my introductory period had passed. At this point, I'm supposed to be able to make the transfer. I'm all excited about it. Like, yes, I don't have to travel this far every day anymore. And then at 6 months, I was supposed to be able to transition altogether to this other location that, again, was pretty much right up the street and around the corner from me. So to make a long story short in that regard, she would not allow me to make the transfer. She made all of these invalid excuses. None of them were legitimate. Okay. And all of a sudden, she started to question my performance. All of a sudden, she wanted me to work overtime and, and just all of these outlandish requests. And it started to get so unbearable, and to the point that, everything that I did, she would pick apart. And she needed to keep a close watch on me. And she would call me into her office every single day about something so minute, so petty. Like, hey, Katrina. And I always knew it was coming. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach. Like, I would literally have to pray before I would walk into this building. Okay. Because every single day, this woman had something to say about anything she could think of. Oh, you didn't participate in Goodie Day. Or I noticed that, you weren't really actively participating in the meeting as much. Do you not have any suggestions for our department? I mean, why aren't you being a part of the discussion? Or even if I was, it just was never enough for her. Or, or I was participative, right? Or I said something and she's like, you know what? I felt like you challenged me in the meeting, or you gave too much pushback. And, like all of these look like just anything, microaggressions, right? Micromanagement, like all of these things she started to do, because she would never say it, of course, but it was all because of what I alluded to earlier, right? Just everything that was going in my favor. Now, I was really upset about this. And like I said, it started to really be all consuming because I knew every day that I showed up, I really started having that dreaded feeling that would overcome me. Like, I don't want to keep showing up every day with this woman asking if she can speak with me privately. Like, if you've got so much to say, if it's such a problem, why haven't you brought that? First of all, it would be new things every day, right? So if if it wasn't one thing, it was another. And if it was so much of a problem, why didn't she take it to her boss, who actually had more power, let's say, to have then the conversation with me? But anyways, okay, so she was writing all these things up about me so that she can put this on my performance, which this had nothing to do with my performance. Let's be clear. My performance was impeccable. I had an impeccable record. Okay. My attendance rate, I mean, I never missed a date. And so I showed up, and I showed up fully 100% there to help the patients, there to help my team. So, um, so anyway, she started going around asking my coworkers and my colleagues questions about me, personally prying. Again, so nothing to do with my work ethic or my work performance, but she was asking very personable questions, or personal questions, to the people that I would work with. Fortunately for me, though, these individuals liked me so much. They had so much respect for me. They really appreciated the work that I did and how much I helped and all of these things. And so thankfully, I had already built that rapport. So they were coming to me and telling me, hey, what's going on here? Like this, I'm not going to name her name, but let's just call her Amy. Amy keeps coming to us asking all of these questions. It has nothing to do with your work performance necessarily, although she's kind of like she's going through your workstations, she's rummaging through your drawers, she's taking notes, she's asking all of these questions, she's asking us about your personal life, like who are you dating, are you married, who are you with, do you have kids, like all of these things. And she was kind of hinting around to some of these things too with me, but she never like really outright said it in the way that she was apparently coming to approach them about it. And so they were really bothered by that. So they come to me to say, like, what the hell's going on? Why is she doing this? What is this about? Like, she's on some witch hunt. Like, I would go to her boss, okay, and let her know what's going on before because this is not the first time she's done this to people, but somebody's got to finally speak up. So I continued to show up and be called into her office. And I would just be like, oh Lord, please don't let this lady call me into her office today. Like, it was so bad, y'all. Like, this is probably TMI, but I'm just going to tell the truth. I'm going to be truthful and transparent. Okay. I would be on my way to work, and all that time, like my 45-minute ride or whatever it was, I didn't have any real issue. Right. But when I would get close to getting off my exit, my stomach would churn and turn so bad. I literally felt like I had an emergency. I got to go to the bathroom. Like, I felt physically ill. Seriously, I would get an immediate headache. I would get tensed up. That's how much it was to deal with this lady. Just anything she could pick apart, how I sterilized something, or I didn't go do the autoclaving right, or I did this, or I didn't do that, or just the weirdest things. And the things she was bringing up, by the way, they weren't true. None of these things were real. It was just something, like I said, that she was making up all of these different she was accusing me of doing things that just weren't true. Okay. So again, fast forward in the story. I was taking a lot of notes. Okay. Every time I would show up to a meeting, I was showing up to be prepared. And obviously I was making my best effort to correct whatever the problem she said was the problem. And I had gathered so much supporting documentation from people who were willing to say, I'm going to be a witness for you. I'm going to go and report this for you. If anybody comes and asks, I'll tell the truth. And so I created a binder like this thick of all of the conversations that people were coming to tell me she was having with them, all of the questions she was asking, all of the things she was doing. Like, I had a whole supporting binder full of documentation, so that when I was able to then go to the appropriate parties, who were her people, her boss and the VP of operations, okay, and the director, and presented this to them, I had a whole case. Okay, I'm living in the state of California, which is a sue happy state for those of you who may not be familiar. I think they saw a potential lawsuit waiting to happen if they didn't address the problem. And so they did. Now, I can't recall if I told them on like I know it had to be the begin or the middle of the week. I want to say between a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And I intentionally did that towards the middle or end of the week. I want to say it was a Friday because I wanted to go tell them. And it was a day that I believe, like a day she had off, and I shared it with them, like maybe a Thursday or something. So when she came back Friday, they waited for everybody to leave. They had the conversation with her. Now, I didn't know until Monday morning when everybody was giving me a round of applause and saying, "You did it." And I'm like, what did I do? Like, what did, and did I win a prize? Did I win what did I do? You know what I mean? And it turned out that they had fired her. They let her go. And that's how they handled it. Now, I was not expecting this outcome. Okay. So I honestly had a little bit of mixed feelings in there because I wasn't trying to get this person fired. But apparently, like I said, this wasn't something new she'd been doing. She was doing this for a long time to people, and nobody was speaking up about it. So they applauded me for going to advocate for myself. And then, of course, they were able to attest to what I was saying to be true. So I had witnesses, and I had, so because I had built this relationship with these people, and I had the supporting documentation. So I think they didn't really have a choice. Do you know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to share this shift in her behavior with you all because it was just really weird how, and it's so crazy that people, and I've always had this problem with women, to be honest, only with women who were in a position of power. Okay. Someone who was an authoritarian, yeah, an authoritarian leadership style, or they were authoritative figure, right? So these women, they will feel intimidated by you, and then they switch, right? First, they hire you because you've got all of this experience. You have an impressive CV or resume. You look great on paper. You interview well. And then you show up and you show out and you show what you are capable of doing. But then if you outshine them, that's a problem. Now they're intimidated and they're ready to turn the pages, right? And to turn, and so that's what happened. And so, um, it just trips me out because yeah, she was snooping all through my stuff and asking all of these questions. And I didn't even tell you about the part when her and the other nurse who was a lead in this department offered to take me to lunch. And I thought they were being very sincere, very genuine to offer to take me to lunch. And so of course I said, sure, that'd be great. That'd be nice. So they just wanted to, have just a casual, time outside of the workplace. And I'm thinking this is going to be great. There's no problem. I would love to get to know you better and for you to get to know me better. But they were tag teaming me back to back to back to back to back with such deeply personal questions, questioning my sexual questions you shouldn't be asking people at work. Okay, not like if we kind of just happen to get into a conversation about our sexual orientation and that sort of thing, that's one thing. If I volunteered that information, that's one thing. But the fact that they were intentionally prying against what my sexual orientation was and if I was married and do I have children, these are questions you don't ask on a job. And that's why they took me outside of the workplace. I'm sure they never anticipated that I would, because nobody ever did, go and share this with the people who were the ones to address this issue. So I just wanted to throw that in there because I almost forgot that part. It was so many things that had happened. But the emotional and physical toll is really what I wanted to talk about, right? That was really wearing on me emotionally, physically, spiritually, to the point that I was feeling very physically ill. And I was always getting migraine headaches and all of these different things were happening to me. And so I hated driving into work every day. I was dreading going. Okay. So, I guess the takeaway, the key part of this message really is stand up for yourself. Okay. If you're going through a similar scenario or situation, or, anything remotely close, advocate for yourself. Never underestimate the power of advocating for yourself and going to tell the people who actually, the powers that be, who, unless they're a part of, the situation, you might have to go outside of that, right? For legality purposes. But if they're not, and you're in a supportive environment like I was, with the people I build rapport with, from the doctors to the, like I said, front office staff and everyone in between, it's really important that you go tell somebody what's going on. Don't just deal with it and put up with the crap. You know what I mean? Bullying is a real thing. And for me, it was not just about fighting back per se. Although it was a lot about that for me, because if you don't know, if you haven't heard my story before, I actually grew up as a bullied child. That bullying followed me through, from elementary school, junior high, high school, not in college, skipped college, but then obviously into the workplace. So this was one of my very, very, very first, not my very first, but one of my first encounters, certainly anything as deep as this was. So and to the point where the outcome was me getting somebody fired unintentionally. Again, that was never my intent. I just wanted her to stop with the harassment. You know what I mean? But I'm glad that it happened that way, because it taught me a valuable lesson about standing up for myself more, advocating for myself more. And I'm sure it taught her some valuable lessons. You know what I mean? And documenting everything and having that support, because I had built up those relationships, really did validate. It was crucial to validating my experiences. And so this experience for me was that sometimes taking a stand for yourself and advocating for yourself in this way can lead to unexpected expectations, but necessary changes at the same time. And so, not just for me personally, but for the workplace culture, I am so sure they were able to now take this experience and vet the people that they were going to be putting in position of power, because clearly this wasn't the kind of work culture that they were wanting, right? So, or they wouldn't have done anything about it. So I really appreciated that when I did approach them and present to them my case, that they actually did something about it. So I encourage you, if you're going through something like this, or again, something similar, I really strongly encourage you to go tell somebody, share your story, let people know, get to talking, document, document, document. I cannot tell you tell you enough about how much that saved me. And I've always been someone who documented everything. And that really has saved me time and time again. So if I had one piece of advice to you from this, aside from telling somebody, make sure you have supporting documentation and make sure you're building those relationships, because relationships really matter. Those people came through for me at a time I really needed them, because had I not done that first and been very standoffish and maybe even, seemingly in alignment to what this person was, my boss is trying to paint the picture of me to be, maybe they wouldn't have been so willing to come through for me in that way. Do you know what I mean? But because they already knew me and they knew knew her and her character and her ways of, how she has done these kinds of things before, they were willing to stand up for me. And I really appreciated that. So if you're encountering any sort of workplace bullying, I seriously urge you to make sure that you don't keep that to yourself and deal with the repercussions of all of that. Go tell somebody. You know what I mean? Go let somebody know what's going on. Okay. So I hope this situation was very enlightening, or my story was very enlightening, and that if you are in a situation like this, or going through anything like this at all, or have been through something like this in the past, that you'll take heed, that you'll take note, and that you'll actually stand up for yourself. Let me know in the comments, by the way, has anything like this been your experience in the workplace? Share in the comments below, what was your situation, your scenario? Let me know what your solution was. How did you handle it? Would you have done what I did? Have you done what I've done before? And then what was the outcome of that? I would love for you to share. I would love to know. Let's go ahead and start the dialogue, because the more that we let people know, what our stories are and share that out loud, then I don't know how much. I mean, I think that it will minimize at least the workplace bullying when more people are standing up for their rights. That's what I know for sure. But it also lets people know that they're not in this alone, right? So let's go ahead and open up the dialogue for that. Share in the comments below. And if you've gotten any value out of this video today, I appreciate it so much that you're here, but I would really appreciate it even more if you would like, comment, save, and share this video, and definitely subscribe, okay? So that we can get the message out to more people just like you who need to hear this message. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to tune out as always. And until next time, I am wholeheartedly in this journey with you. And I want you to come back for more episodes of my Corporate Chronicles. I'll be sharing a lot more of these stories. Let me know how you're liking them so far. All right. Take care. God bless. See you next time. Bye for now.